Could I add something?
Yes, please, Martin.
Could I add something on that? I mean, I think we all recognise the good work the Egyptian government have done on prisoner exchange, on reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas, and on humanitarian crisis. But I made the point too that I think if the wall is built, which they have every right to do, of course, it can never be satisfactory that there are tunnels. There is access to Gaza through tunnels. But if this is built, then I think there should be a suspension of the agreement on movement and access, which was signed some years ago between the US, Israel, the EU, and Egypt, to allow humanitarian supplies, goods, through the Rafah crossing. At the moment, it's purely a pedestrian crossing. And under this agreement, goods movements are banned through Rafah. But I think if the wall were to be built, then that should be lifted so that adequate humanitarian supplies can reach Gaza. At the moment, they're unfairly restricted entirely through the Kerem Shalom crossing, which is too small to allow a sufficient number of goods vehicles to come through. And I'm sure the Egyptians would not want to be party to any situation where people in Gaza are deprived of necessary humanitarian supplies.
Could I add on that Mr. Ging of the UNRWA is the only person, the only organisation bringing supplies into the Gaza Strip who does not use the tunnel. All the other tunnels, all of the other supplies that come into the Gaza Strip come into the tunnels. For example, we were told, we rode on 2 buses, and we were told that our buses were fuelled by fuel coming in through the tunnels. And it's been described, as I say, as a tunnel economy. And there's a curiosity that the prices are, for example, of fuel, but of other things, are cheaper than if they came through Israel. So if the border opens with Israel, the Israeli prices will seem exorbitant compared with what's coming through the tunnel. But nobody wants 1.5 million people to be supplied by goods coming in through a tunnel. For God's sake, what kind of world are we living in when the Israeli government is content to see 1.5 million people living on or below the breadline? Is that the kind of thing that the Israeli state was founded to enforce? That's not why I supported the foundation of the Israeli state.
Can I add a brief sentence, Gerald? The international community fails to take any action against Israel, so this situation continues. But John Ging at the United Nations Relief and Workers Association, UNRWA, actually told us that this year he's only received 60% of the funding he had last year to do all the things that he has to do. Now that is also the international community. What are we doing to these people? And I repeat, what time bomb are we creating in Gaza for the future?
It was heartbreaking when we met some of the victims to hear these people living in tents, sleeping at night in the cold, express sympathy with the victims of Haiti. People in Gaza expressing sympathy, and rightly expressing sympathy, and the world rightly wanting to do what it can to help the people in Haiti. But at the same time, the world can stand by and watch what is happening to the people of Gaza. It's a strange world we live in. Yes, sir, you were going to ask a question.
Yeah, my name is Wajad Khan from Daily Khabar newspaper. This is Pakistani newspaper. I just want to ask, so many delegation went to Gaza in past. So do you think any change with the British government or international governments with their behaviors?
Who can tell? We came back, before we went to Gaza, we knew of the situation. I led a parliamentary delegation a little while ago, the first official Inter-Parliamentary Union delegation to the West Bank. And let's not forget the people in the West Bank who are suffering as well. They may not be suffering as acutely and appallingly as the people of the Gaza Strip, but by heaven, they're suffering too. So we knew about it, but what we saw and what we heard, and this is factual material from trusted sources like UNRWA, made us more determined than ever to get the siege lifted, though that depends on government, it can't depend on individual parliamentarians. But before I left, I had a discussion with Douglas Alexander, the Secretary of State for International Development, who has done very, very valuable work in Gaza. And he has asked me to report back to him, and the members of the delegation will be meeting him as well as the Foreign Secretary. Anybody who thinks that the visit of our delegation is going somehow miraculously to improve the situation is not living in the real world. But 60 people came back from Gaza to their various parliaments, utterly determined to do whatever they possibly could to stop this inhuman treatment of human beings. One could go on and on from the notes we took, from the material we got about what we heard and what we saw, and how harrowing it was. But here we are, sitting in a comfortable room in the Palace of Westminster discussing it. And one of the things that I always take account of when visiting a scene of a tragedy or catastrophe is that we are harrowed and we are appalled, but we come back comfortable. And it just goes on and on and on and on for them.
Sir, I'm Razia from the Asians. I just want to know, are you going to produce any report based on your eye accounts or eyewitnesses?
John?
Yeah. She's asking whether we will produce a report.
Are you going to
Yes, of
produce a
course.
report?
We've got a whole series of actions that we're going to take, and of course a report will be one of them.
Hi, my name is Nedim Aslan. I'm representing Turkish newspaper Vakit. You mentioned Egyptian efforts for a better Gaza, for Gazan people. But at the same time, Egypt is also one of the parties, along with Israel, that blockade Gaza. And you mentioned also tunnels economy. Why there is tunnels, and why Egyptian government does not open the crossings? Did you ever mention to the Egyptian authorities this?
Well, as I say, we discussed this. We had a very long meeting with the Egyptian foreign minister. It went on for nearly 2 hours. And of course these issues came up. But already, as I say, after I raised the question in the House of Commons with the Foreign Secretary on Tuesday, he said, of course, it's essential that the Israelis lift the blockade. And he also called upon the Egyptian government to do everything they could to assist the people of Gaza.